Usually when you board a commercial flight, you have like one specific, universally understood mission.
Right, yeah. To just survive it.
Exactly. You find your seat, you stow your bag, put in your noise-canceling headphones, and you just attempt to disappear. The entire goal is sensory deprivation until you reach your destination. You want the flight to be as utterly uneventful as humanly possible.
Oh, absolutely. It is the ultimate liminal space.
Yeah.
Sociologists actually talk about these transitional zones all the time, right? These places where normal social hierarchies and rules are they're temporarily suspended.
Like you're just on pause.
Right. You were just suspended between point A and point B, trapped in this metal tube with 100 complete strangers, and the unspoken social contract of an airplane cabin is, just to ignore everyone else and endure it quietly.
Which is exactly what makes today's source material so fascinating for this deep dive.
It really is.
Because we are looking at an everyday digital communication that completely shatters that unspoken rule of the liminal space. And the format of this source is striking too.
Yeah, it's not what you'd usually expect.
No, not at all. We aren't analyzing a dense, peer-reviewed sociology paper today. We are looking at a single email draft.
Just an email.
Just an email. It's dated today, actually, May 20th, 2026, from an account called Life Messages. You even see the familiar multicolored Gmail logo on the screenshot, and it's drafted by someone who is just trying to process a profound experience they witnessed on one of those, mundane flights.
Yeah, a totally ordinary Tuesday kind of flight.
Right, and our mission today is to extract the psychological and social frameworks hidden inside the story.
To really see the ripple effect in action.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, because bringing that natural enthusiasm to how a simple plane ride turned into a masterclass in human connection is, it's just wild.
It is. And the author of this email draft, they set the scene by establishing that exact baseline of apathy we were just talking about.
The sensory deprivation mode.
Right. They are sitting on the plane, waiting for takeoff, trying to read a book, completely checked out. But the atmosphere in the cabin shifts dramatically during boarding.
Oh, yeah.
Because 10 young soldiers walk down the aisle and take the seats immediately around the author.
And a military uniform instantly changes the energy of a room.
Obviously.
It introduces this massive weight to a previously casual environment. Does the email say where they were heading?
Yes, and that detail is so crucial. The soldiers are heading to Afghanistan.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
The author notes that they are young, dressed in simple uniforms, and carrying this palpable mix of nervous excitement and, deep tension.
Because they're leaving civilian life.
Exactly. They're leaving the safety of their ordinary lives to step into an environment where there is absolutely no guarantee they will return intact.
I mean, that is a staggering cognitive load for a young person to carry on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Immense.
They aren't just commuting, they're transitioning from peace to a literal war zone.
Yeah. And then the inciting incident happens.
The food cart.
Right, the food cart. They reach cruising altitude, and about an hour into the flight attendant makes a completely standard PA announcement. She lets the cabin know that passengers can purchase a light meal for $5.
Just standard operating procedure. You hear that, you either ignore it or you reach for your wallet.
The author instinctively reaches for his wallet.
Yeah.
But as he does, he overhears the soldiers in the row behind him whispering.
Oh, this is the part that really got me.
Right. One of them looks at the menu and whispers, "No, it's too expensive. Let's just wait until we reach the military base to eat." And the other young men just quietly nod and agree to sit there hungry.
Okay, wait, I have to pause here because that doesn't compute at all.
It feels contradictory, doesn't it?
It completely does.
Yeah.
These are young men literally heading into a combat zone. They are mentally preparing to make the ultimate physical sacrifice for their country, yet their immediate reality is doing mental math over a $5 bag of pretzels. That feels almost absurd. Why does a trivial $5 barrier even exist in their minds, given the massive stakes of their destination?
Well, it is a perfect example of what behavioral economists call mental accounting.
Okay, mental accounting.
Right. Our brains are incredibly compartmentalized. The fact that they are stepping into mortal danger doesn't magically erase their civilian financial conditioning.
Oh, so they're still just broke young guys.
Exactly. They are still young guys, probably on a very strict military budget. The human brain really struggles to weigh a monumental abstract concept like mortality in a war zone against a very immediate concrete concept like having $5 fewer in your bank account today.
That makes sense, I guess. The civilian financial stress remains fully intact.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is how the author responds to this cognitive dissonance.
Because it is jarring to witness.
It is. Seeing the absurdity of soldiers rationing pennies on their way to war, he decides to intervene, but he doesn't make a big show of it.
Right, he doesn't stand up and make a speech.
No, not at all. He quietly flags down the flight attendant, hands her a $50 bill, and simply tells her to bring food for all of those young soldiers.
Which is like a reverse bystander effect.
Yeah, let's unpack the mechanism of that. Because the standard bystander effect dictates that the more people who witness a problem, the less likely any one individual is to help.
Because responsibility is diffused, right?
Precisely. Everyone assumes someone else will handle it.
But he actively breaks that cycle.
He does.
He doesn't sit there thinking, oh, the airline should comp their meals, or the military should give them a bigger per diem.
Right, he doesn't wait for the universe to fix the absurdity.
He just uses the tool he has right there, a $50 bill, to bridge the gap between their monumental sacrifice and their microcalculation.
He treats it as a simple transaction. He inputs $50 to solve a localized problem. And he likely expected the transaction to end the moment the cash left his hand so he could just go back to his book.
Just buy the food and go back to sensory deprivation.
Exactly. But what the email draft beautifully illustrates is that spontaneous, targeted generosity acts like a stone dropped in a pond.
The ripple effect.
Right. It never stops at the intended target. It immediately exposes hidden vulnerabilities in the surrounding bystanders.
Which is exactly what happens with the flight attendant. I mean, I fully expected the next beat of the story to be the soldiers thanking him, but the immediate reaction comes from the airline employee.
Yeah. Upon receiving the $50 and the instruction to feed the soldiers, the flight attendant's reaction is visceral.
She just breaks down.
Her eyes instantly fill with tears. She stands there in the aisle and reveals to this random passenger that her own son is currently serving in the military in Iraq.
Oh, wow. I didn't see that coming at all when I first read it.
It's a gut punch.
It totally reframes what the man actually did. He thought he was just buying calories for 10 strangers, but he accidentally reached directly into the heart of a deeply worried mother.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the sociology of service workers for a moment. Flight attendants are required to perform a massive amount of emotional labor.
Oh, like hiding their actual feelings to do the job.
Yes, the sociologist Arlie Hochschild coined that term to describe jobs where you have to suppress your own feelings to sustain an outward countenance that, produces a proper state of mind in others.
So the passengers feel safe and happy.
Right. This woman is pushing a heavy cart, smiling, reciting safety protocols, serving drinks, all while carrying the agonizing, invisible burden of a child in a war zone.
Because we treat service workers as fixtures of the liminal space, not as, humans with complex internal lives.
Exactly. And the $50 bill pierces that veil of professional anonymity.
Because he acknowledged the soldiers?
Yes. By acknowledging the humanity and the value of those specific soldiers, he inadvertently validated her silent, daily struggle. The email observes that the beauty of kindness is how it quietly and powerfully spreads.
It's highly resonant.
Empathy is incredibly resonant. Without knowing it, he signaled to her that her son's sacrifice and her own maternal terror were seen by the world.
That resonance is just the first ripple, though, because the email draft documents how this localized emotional exchange begins to, mutate.
It really escalates.
Yeah. It shifts from a one-on-one interaction into this structural, cabin-wide infection of generosity.
Infectionate generosity, that's a great way to put it.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, because the ripple takes on physical form almost immediately. A few minutes later, the flight attendant returns to the man's seat.
Right.
And she doesn't just bring him his change, she brings him a hot, first-class meal.
A direct thank you gift from the entire flight crew.
The crew recognized that the standard rules of commerce had just been suspended.
Yeah, someone broke the script.
So they responded by bending the strict rules of the airline hierarchy to reward that disruption.
And then the contagion spreads to the passengers.
This part is wild.
Another traveler who had absolutely nothing to do with the initial transaction walks down the aisle, quietly slips the man $25, and simply says, "Let me contribute."
I want to pause on this because it's like watching super cooled water freeze.
Oh, that's an interesting analogy.
Have you ever seen those videos where a bottle of water is chilled below freezing, but it stays perfectly liquid because there's no nucleus for the ice to form around?
Yeah, and then you tap it and instantly turns to slush.
Exactly. The cabin is like that super cooled water. It's full of latent tension and potential energy. Everyone is sitting there in their liquid, apathetic state. The man drops in a single $50 gesture, and it acts as the crystal. The entire cabin instantly solidifies into a community.
That is a phenomenal metaphor for social proof and permission structure.
Permission structures, right.
Humans are deeply social, herd-driven creatures. We are constantly scanning our environment to determine the acceptable baseline of behavior.
And on a plane, the baseline is ignore everyone.
In a public setting, the default baseline is apathy.
Yeah.
Mind your own business. Don't make a scene.
So the $25 guy.
That passenger who handed over the $25 likely felt the exact same urge to help the soldiers when he heard them whispering.
Well, he didn't do it.
Right, because he lacked the initial catalyst, the permission to break the social norm of silence.
So the first guy didn't just buy the food, he bought the permission slip for the rest of the cabin to care.
Precisely. He absorbed the social risk of acting first.
Wow.
Once the taboo of public intervention was broken, the floodgates opened. And it culminates in the ultimate disruption of the airplane's hierarchy.
The captain.
The captain steps out of the cockpit.
Which, I mean, getting the captain to come out mid-flight is incredibly rare these days.
Almost unheard of.
The hierarchy on a plane is practically medieval, and the captain is the king behind a locked, reinforced door. But he walks all the way back to the man's seat, shakes his hand firmly, and reveals his own history.
Yeah.
He says, I was a military pilot once, and I have never forgotten a stranger who bought me a meal back then.
Full circle.
Yeah. And the detail the author includes next is what really threw me off initially.
The applause.
The entire cabin breaks into spontaneous applause.
And the author of the email explicitly analyzes this moment, noting that the applause was absolutely not about the $50.
Because $50 is a trivial amount of money in the grand scheme of an airplane full of professionals.
Exactly.
And that applause part genuinely confused me at first. I mean, if I see someone buy a sandwich for a stranger on a city bus, nobody's giving a standing ovation.
Right, you'd probably just look out the window.
Yeah. Clapping for a $50 transaction feels like a massive overreaction. What shifted in the group's psychology to trigger that?
Well, consider the environment the author describes. We live in an era heavily defined by cynicism, arguments, and skepticism.
Sure do.
We are constantly bombarded with information telling us that people are selfish and society is fractured. We walk around wearing heavy psychological armor.
Expecting the worst.
Exactly. We ignore the hardships of others because we assume we are powerless to fix them. So, the applause was a sudden, collective release of that tension.
It was a relief valve.
Yes. When the man acted and the crew responded, and the other passenger contributed and the captain validated it,
The whole system flipped.
the group witnessed empirical proof that the cynical status quo is fragile. The applause was the passengers celebrating the realization that they were sitting in a room full of good people.
They realized they weren't alone?
It awakened a dormant compassion that everyone secretly wanted to express, but felt too socially guarded to initiate.
So they weren't clapping for the $50. They were clapping for the undeniable proof that humanity isn't fundamentally broken.
Precisely.
It's like everyone breathed a collective sigh of relief, saying, okay, this is who we actually want to be.
And as the physical events on the plane conclude, the email draft moves from this immediate, acute behavioral shift to the long-term impact of the gesture.
Right, zooming out a bit.
The author notes the parting words the man offered the soldiers as they prepared to deplane.
He just tells them the road to the base is long, buy something to eat, wishing you safety.
It's incredibly grounded.
Yeah, no grand speeches, just, a dad-like piece of advice.
And the author reflects on this, pointing out a stark reality. Years from now, if those soldiers survive Afghanistan, they will have entirely forgotten the specific food they ate on that commercial flight.
Right. The physical calories are ephemeral.
They will fade from memory completely.
Which, forces me to ask, if the actual food is entirely forgettable, did the physical transaction even matter? Like, was the food just a Trojan horse? So what does this all mean for the soldiers?
Well, this raises an important question that's really the core of the source material. What do humans actually need to survive extreme environments?
Physical sustenance versus emotional support.
Exactly. The author concludes that while the soldiers will forget the meal, they will carry the psychological impact of that moment indefinitely.
The food was merely a delivery mechanism.
Yes. The actual payload was the feeling of being valued, cherished, and seen by the society they were being sent to protect.
Psychological armor.
That's a great term for it.
Because when you are deploying to a theater of war where you might literally be treated as expendable, knowing that a random civilian in an airplane cabin cared whether your stomach was grumbling,
He changes everything.
that is a shield you can carry into battle. It fundamentally changes your relationship with the country you are serving.
The ultimate takeaway from the email draft is a profound thesis on structural human connection.
Yeah.
The author writes that what binds the world together isn't money, power, or grand policy.
Because those things are transient.
They are easily dismantled. What prevents humanity from devolving into cold isolation is the willingness of individuals to extend momentary care to each other. Those gentle hearts.
I find myself challenging the scalability of this, though.
Oh, how so?
Well, does a moment like this only happen in a highly charged environment? I mean, you have the liminal space of the airplane, the incredibly high stakes of soldiers going to war, and the emotional trigger of a worried mother.
It's a perfect storm.
Right. Can this kind of behavioral contagion actually work in the mundane reality of, like, a grocery store line or a morning commute?
That's a fair pushback. The catalyst here was incredibly potent because of those stakes, you're right. But the underlying mechanics, the social proof, the permission structures, the release of tension, those are universal human traits.
Because the fuel is always there.
Yes. The environment on the plane was highly combustible, but the material that caught fire, human empathy, is omnipresent.
It's everywhere.
It is sitting dormant in every grocery store line and office building. It just requires someone willing to absorb the initial social friction of going first.
That warmth, that willingness to extend beyond the boundary of your own immediate comfort is the true currency.
It really is.
It's the invisible tether holding the whole messy social contract together.
And it is remarkable, isn't it, to realize this entire sociological phenomenon was captured in a simple Gmail window.
Just a draft.
Someone sat down, trying to make sense of why a boring flight suddenly felt like a spiritual awakening, and just drafted this message.
Let's pull all these threads together.
Sound good.
We started with the most mundane scenario imaginable, boarding a flight with the sole intention of tuning out the world. But a seemingly trivial barrier, a $5 price tag on a snack, collided with a quiet $50 intervention.
And the resulting cascade was astonishing.
It provided psychological armor to 10 nervous soldiers. It validated the hidden anguish of a terrified mother. It brought out the nostalgia of a stoic pilot.
And it united a metal tube full of disconnected, cynical strangers into a temporary community of shared empathy.
It demonstrated that empathy isn't merely a passive internal feeling.
Right. It is an active, physical catalyst that completely re-architects the environment around it.
And for you listening right now, that is the most practical application of this deep dive.
Absolutely.
We aren't dissecting this source just to tell you a heartwarming story. We live in an age of immense information overload.
And cynicism.
The algorithmic default is often outrage, cynicism, and division. It is incredibly easy to put your head down, keep your headphones in, and assume you are powerless to shift the culture around you.
But the mechanics we explored today prove otherwise.
You have the power to be the crystal dropped into the supercooled water.
You really do. You don't need a massive platform or sweeping policy changes.
No.
You just have to recognize the invisible burdens of the people in your immediate vicinity and be willing to break the unspoken rule of public apathy.
So as you go about the rest of your day, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Think about this one.
If a single, quiet, $50 gesture can fundamentally alter the psychological atmosphere of an entire commercial airplane, what latent kindness is sitting dormant in the room you are in right now, just waiting for someone to go first?